As was the case on the prologue to determine grid positions, the first loop of the race proper meandered its way from Leidenburg towards Dahlstrom and Machadodorp. Conditions were also the same, with a long grass and large amounts of water making life difficult, particularly for those cars slightly lower in the special vehicle class.
At the front of the field, matters were starting to get interesting. Ramon and Marek Besadenhout were still out in front in the Red Star Raceway Toyota Hilux, but were being hounded by Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst, looking for win number 2 in the RFS Visser Transport Toyota Hilux. Leading a race overall and having to clear the track for those doing the chasing was a new experience for the Besadenhouts. It can be tricky, but they were handling the pressure without any problem.
About 2 minutes adrift of the leaders, Hannes Grobler and Henny Terstegen were still running strongly in third place in the RFS Toyota Hilux. South African champion Duncan Vos and Rob Howie were also holding station in the first of the Works Team Castrol Toyota Hilux entries, but suddenly found themselves in a spot of bother when the steering column collapsed. Driving an off-road car at speed through the bush with the steering column flapping around is not to be recommended, with Howie pointing that the route went that way, the car was going this way, and the interlude would cost Vos and Howie valuable time.
In their first outing in the X-Force factory Nissan Navara, the Baden Tyre Services pair of Thomas Rundle and Jean Moore were running strongly in the top 5. Chasing after them were special vehicle leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman, who were also making steady, if unspectacular, progress in the Motorrad BAT. Behind the BAT, the pre-race strategy to preserve car and crew and have both in good working order at the designated service point appeared to be working for former SA champions Neil Woolridge and Kenny Scholthammer. The diesel-powered factory Ford Racing Ranger TDCI was still ahead of privateers Kobus van Tonder and Freddie Krill, who were having a great run in the X-Works Unifreight Ford Ranger.
A little overshoot at a 90-degree left cost Johan van Staden and James Rousseau a couple of seconds, but it was not enough to take the AIM Toyota Hilux in the hands of George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk ahead of the Class P leaders.
The Total Motorsport Porter, driven by Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau, had not made much of an impression on the cars ahead of them. The Adenco 400 winners were still lying third in the special vehicle category, with Herman and Wichard Zülwald giving chase. The father and son team were pushing hard in the Zülwald Racing SVR and were still locked in battle with Nick and Ryan Harper in the Atlas Copco BAT. An overshoot also cost the Harpers a few seconds, with the pair desperate to pick up points after a non-finish on the opening event of the season. Jimmy Zars and Stefan Kutsia were handily placed in the Cobalt Racing Porter, and steaming along behind them were Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton, who had not enjoyed the best of mornings in the lead team Castrol Toyota Hilux.
It had also not exactly been the happiest of mornings for Duncan Vos and Rob Howie, who were back to speed after running repairs to the steering column problems that threatened to scupper their race. Class B leaders Derek Du Toit and Rod Jeffrey were battling power steering issues in the Orange Tree BAT and were being hauled in by Hamish and Alistair Stubbs in the Staffix Viper. Then progress for the Stubbs brothers was temporarily halted when they bogged down in a mud hole.
Next in line to tackle the mud hole were Mark Corbett and Rudy Balzer, who had picked up a place or two in the Century Racing CR3 and were handily placed to score Class P points. Corbett is widely experienced, took a good run at the mud hole and sailed through without any problems. It was all good, clean fun for young race fans, and help had arrived for the Stubbs brothers, with a local farmer on hand with a tractor to haul the Staffix car out of the mire.
Some spectators will do anything to get good vantage points at locations likely to produce a little fun and games. And while the Stubbs brothers went their merry way, farmer and tractor were waiting for more customers. Bodo Bertolt, at 68, the oldest driver in the race, had been racing for around 40 years and had far too much savvy to bog down in the Atlas Copco BAT. Bertolt and Philip Hurselman had made up plenty of ground after being among those hit with a 30-minute penalty after the Donaldson prologue. And for the farmer sitting atop his tractor, more business was on the way in the form of Louw de Bruin and Rian Greyling in the Rubicon Ford Ranger.
Mud holes and stranded competitors are a good source of amusement on off-road races, and while the Bruin and Greyling were trying for forward motion, more potential victims arrived in the form of Christian de Ploy and Henk Janssen van Vieren in the RFS Toyota Hilux. There were no problems for them, and farmer and tractor were going to the rescue of the Rubicon crew.
At the tail end of the field, a little cameo performance was developing with teenager Lance Woolridge and the experienced Ward Huxtable making good progress at the front of Class E in the Ford Racing Ranger. Although fitted with four-wheel drive Class E vehicles are restricted to four-cylinder diesel or petrol engines, and on tough events like the Toyota Dealer 400, they are at a huge disadvantage. After problems on the prologue, the Ford pair started at the back of the field and were running ahead of debutants Johan de Lange and Gert Usch in a Nissan hardbody.
Crews were now on the final section of Loop 1 of a race that was starting to take its toll and were on their way to the designated service point at the Leidenburg Rugby Club.
The Toyota Dealer 400 was starting to develop into a race of attrition. Special vehicle leaders Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman were now running at the front of the field in the Motorrad Bat and were looking to be in good shape. Problems for rival teams had taken Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer from 7th at the start into the production vehicle lead in the Ford Racing Ranger TDCI.
River crossings are a favourite vantage point for enthusiasts on off-road events, and there is always likely to be plenty of action. Adenko 400 winners Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were still in a solid second place in the RFS Visser Transport Toyota Hilux, but prologue winners Ramon and Moret Besadenhout had dropped back to third in the Red Star Raceway Toyota Hilux. Leading a race overall was a first for the husband and wife combination, and they found it hard going, acting as pathfinders for the rest of the field, and were also slowed by a puncture.
Former SA champion Shamir Variawa and Siegfried Rousseau in the Total Porter had also moved up a place or two. They were now second among the special vehicles, but were still nearly 3.5 minutes adrift of Hutchison and Bergman. Problems for other teams had also worked to the advantage of Kobus van Tonde and Freddie Kriel, who were an impressive fourth in the Unifreight Ford Ranger.
The water at some of the river crossings was fast flowing, but that did not stop young spectators from looking for better vantage points from which to catch the action, with the battle between the Harper and Sulwald father and son combinations still in full swing. The Harpers were now ahead of the Sulwalds, but there was little between the Atlas Copco Bat and the Sulwald Racing SVR, with both crews taking a bath at river crossings. The two special vehicles were being chased down by George Barkhuizen and David van Wyk, who were having a great run in the AIM Toyota Hilux. And behind the Bloemfontein-based pair, Johan van Staden and James Rousseau had slipped from 2nd to 5th overall among the special vehicles, but still had a huge Class P lead in the KEC Bat.
The designated service point offered crews a short respite, with special vehicle leader Evan Hutchison happy with his morning's work in car.
It's been quite taxing on the brain, you know, trying to keep the concentration up and looking for grip in the terrain. But so far so good, no problems. We're off into the forest now, so that's going to be even more slippery and tricky. So we just got to keep our heads. One more lap, yeah.
Production vehicle leaders Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer stuck to a game plan on the first loop and were looking for more of the same on loop 2.
It's going well. Fortunately, we've just been a bit cautious in the rocks. The rocks are absolutely treacherous and, you know, still slippery like it was yesterday. So letting the car slide into rocks and all that, I think that's what caught some of the guys out. But we just stuck to a good pace, stuck to our guns, and yeah, we're in the lead at the moment. So we've just got to go and do the other half and keep the same.
Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst enjoyed a relatively trouble-free run, with Badenhorst a little concerned over what had happened to other competitors.
Muddy.
we had a flat, and but I wonder where all the other guys are. There's Hannes now, but yeah, the guys were just sort of falling out or having flats or punctures. But yeah, it was a nice one.
For prologue winners Ramon and Marek Besadenhout, it had been a stressful morning.
Weet jy wat, ons sukkel maar so 'n bietjie. Elke keer as ons die water slaan, of water kry, dan wil die bek doodgaan. En ons het op een stuk verskriklik ver verdwaal. Maar verder gaan dit goed. Lekker rof, tegnies.
Pretoria crew Johan van Staden and James Rousseau had a handy lead in Class P and were looking forward to the second loop, which was likely to be a little drier.
Totally run out yesterday, so all the marshlands, it's full of water, so it's a lot of mud, a lot of getting stuck, overshooting because you can't brake, it's just slippery. But going good. I think we dropped down to about 5th overall because of the Viets coming in. Otherwise good. Looking forward to the second round. I think it's going to be a bit drier.
It had also been an adventurous outing for Anthony Taylor and Robin Houghton, with the Castrol Toyota showing battle scars.
10k's in, the wiper stopped working, so I'd already passed Duncan and we were going quite nicely, and then the wiper stopped, so we stopped, fixed that, and then got going again. About 3k's later had to stop again because the one arm had actually come off under the dash and we had to remove that first, and then got going again, so we've probably lost a couple of minutes. And after that it's been pretty good. We haven't hit anything, but I see the whole front of the car's all messed up, so I don't know, honestly don't know what has taken it, but I think it's Mother Earth.
A blown motor finally put paid to Cape Town crew Derek Du Toit and Rod Jeffrey in the Orange Tree Bat. The retirement of Du Toit and Jeffrey saw brothers Hamish and Alistair Stubbs racing together for the first time in 3 years, taking over the lead in Class B.
The one and only, my brother and I, are racing together again after 3 years, and we're on top of the log, so let's see if we can keep it there for the second round.